Did you suddenly become an Eskimo?
I did. We're prepping for our 4th winter storm this month. So I just figured I should have this on all the time. What do you think?
Should.
Is it good? Do I look
love
good?
it. It's great.
Do I look good?
You do.
Okay. All right, great. Hi, welcome to Hi, welcome to History of Haunting. From North Carolina.
Yeah, it's like 75 here, so you know.
I mean,
it was cold this morning. It was like
it was chilly. Yes, It was. I'm Carrie, as you can see below.
Yeah, and I'm Laura.
As you can see below.
Carrie has her fur-lined jacket on, all ready for the storms. Storms are coming.
Yeah, storms are coming. We had the snow like January 3rd, which everybody saw. Coy and I were excited about. And then Izzy blew through and dumped a shit ton of ice, which was less fun. And then Jasper blew through last weekend, and now we have a nor'easter that's going to be coming through and starting in the Carolinas. So I was like, what is happening?
It's awesome.
Fortunately, it's all very manageable snow. We don't have to dig ourselves out of our houses or anything crazy like that. But yeah, so I bought this jacket and I love it. And I love the hood. It's very, as you said the other day, Ali Sheedy. It's very Ali Sheedy.
It's very Breakfast Club.
Yeah. It's very Breakfast Club, which I love. So yeah, hi, welcome. Brand new episode of History of a Haunting. Thank you guys so much. Black Dahlia episode actually is a very, very popular episode. The downloads on it have been insane. So thanks to everybody who has tuned in for the Black Dahlia. It was a conspiracy theory episode that we released to our Patreons back in April of last year, back when Archman was on the show. And it's been very popular. The folks love the true crime. So if you love the true crime, come on over and join us on Patreon, because every month we will bring you a new true crime story. The Patreons are loving it too, Laura. You did a fabulous job with Jack the Ripper. Fabulous.
Man, I had so much fun doing that. It was really fun.
You did a great job.
Really fun.
You did a really great job. And because of you, I then kind of went diving into down the rabbit hole and was like, oh my God, this guy and that guy and this guy. And then I happened to watch the documentary with Jeff Mudgett, his H.H. Holmes' great-great-grandson, where he, it was, what was it, 8 episodes where him and a former CIA agent, analyst rather, kind of explored the possibility that H.H. Holmes, the guy with the infamous murder castle in Chicago, could possibly have been Jack the Ripper. And they came up with some compelling arguments to that fact.
They do. And I actually saw that when it first came out.
So good.
I have a weird thing with H.H. Holmes. I find him fascinating in the way that you find serial killers fascinating.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, like, you're super fucked up. It's something about just how crazy the whole situation in Chicago was.
And we're not alone. Everybody, like, that's why true crime podcasts, there are more true crime podcasts than any other podcast in the world. There's 2 million podcasts in the world. And a huge percentage of that is true crime podcasts.
Yeah, people love to hear about it.
Yeah, there's a huge percentage of paranormal podcasts, but true crime blows paranormal way out of the water. And if you don't have true crime, you don't have paranormal. So they kind of go part and parcel, I think.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Mm-hmm. We need that terrible shit to happen so we can get some hauntings.
Right. Or, horrible asylums or penitentiaries or what have you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Laura and I are planning, just in talks of how cool it would be to go to Chicago and kind of follow the H.H. Holmes trail. You guys have ideas on that, let us know. It is a post office now, his former murder castle. But there's still, he was kind of all over the place. He had properties all over the Illinois immediate Chicago area. It wasn't just the murder castle. He owned property along the river. It was, so we're getting out of our armchairs and going to go play detective, and we're going to help Jeff Mudgett and Amaryllis Fox prove that H.H. Holmes was in fact Jack the Ripper. I like it. So if you guys are fascinated by true crime, listen to our kickoff for the year. Laura did an amazing job. Come join us on Patreon. Everybody at the $5 and up level got the episode, and we'll continue to get all of our true crime episodes. HOAH Podcast is our website, hoahpodcast.com. And if you want to join us on Patreon, it's patreon.com/HOAH Podcast. So that's that on that. And time for the EVPs. Okay, EVPs, or as we like to call them, endless vocal prattling. I just have a couple of EVPs that I want to go over. Laura, let's let you kick off the EVPs. What's been going on in your life?
Oh, Jesus, was I supposed to prepare a speech?
Sure.
Yeah. Not a whole lot. I did have the COVID, so sorry about missing last week.
It was Laura's fault.
I slept for like 20 hours.
She did. She did.
I am better. I'm still super exhausted, which is not the best thing ever. So I could basically just sleep at any time. Other than that, to be honest, just like my mono-like sleeping schedule.
For sure.
Just trying to work and be normal and get Zane started rugby, so
that's fun.
3 times a week, and
oh god.
Yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty much it. I mean, besides being sick.
Yeah. We were supposed to record last Sunday, and I texted her at like 1:00, and I'm like, what time do you want to record? That was 1:00 my time. She said, as late as possible. I'm like, hey, well, I'm clearly not working. I have nothing to do. Anytime's fine with me. But by 10:00 my time, I hadn't heard from her, and I'm like, so I'm going to go to bed. Are you okay? And then I went to bed, and I woke up, checked my phone, still no text from Laura, and I thought, she's fucking dead. She's fucking dead.
Not quite dead, but...
And then you texted me about, I don't know, 1:00 my time, which is 11 your time. And,
right. My computer's not plugged in. Hold on. I'm listening.
Oh, dear.
Plug this bad boy in. Or
oh,
right.
Great. Okay.
There we go. Okay, sorry about that. There we go. Listen, I'm on top of shit.
I mean, you had the Rona. It's fine. Right. You're just so tired. Yeah. So she was like, I'm so sorry. I slept for like 20 hours. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Okay. So yeah, that's when we decided to default to one of the episodes in the vault. And I wasn't sure if Laura wanted to like let everybody know that she had COVID. So that's why I was like, our show got hit with the COVID. So it really could have been either one of us, frankly.
Right. I dodged it for like 2 years. I mean, I did the best I could.
You did good.
I have all this, we did all the things we could. It finally got us.
Because you guys are both fully vaxxed. You got your booster shot. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't prevent you from getting it, but it does prevent you from getting super sick and going into the hospital and potentially dying from it. So,
yeah, we got over it pretty quick, which was great. Now I'm just still tired. He's been fine since like after one day. Meanwhile, I'm sleeping for hours on end.
That's the one thing I've heard. The energy drain is really hardcore. It takes like almost a month to kind of recover and get back to where you were before you got it.
Like I was fucking tired before this happened. I live exhausted.
I don't know when is like like where baseline. I don't know where baseline is. I'm always tired. Yeah.
For real.
For sure. Okay, but you are fine. Zane is fine. You guys are testing negative now, correct?
Yep, we're all good.
Good. All right, well, I'm really glad. Because
me too.
It's a scary disease, and you never know. It affects everybody differently. Like, look at you. You were fucking taken out, and you're still exhausted. And meanwhile, Zane, who you would think would be more ill because he's so young and his immune system isn't as built up as yours, it's totally fine.
The kids seem to bounce back usually pretty quick, though.
Pretty quick, like. Yeah. Unless they have severe immunodeficiencies, they really do, which is good. That's our,
Grateful for that.
yeah, we're getting off our COVID soapbox. Laura, we're really glad that you survived it. But stay vigilant, because a lot of people have known people that have gotten it twice, sometimes 3 times. There's those long hauler people. So just, keep doing what you're doing. Wear your mask, wash your hands, all of that fun stuff. So
Right.
that's our advice to you, our co-host.
Right. Thanks.
The first announcement and update that I did want to talk about is this is our first episode that we recorded after the Betty White Challenge, you guys. And we really want to thank everybody, all of our fans, all of our listeners, everybody across the world who participated in the Betty White Challenge, which was to donate $5 to your local shelter or rescue in Betty White's name. She was a huge advocate for animal rights, and so this was a grassroots movement that kind of caught traction on social media, caught the attention of major news organizations worldwide. And in the days and leading up to her 100th birthday on the 17th, and in the following days after it, shelters, rescues, zoos got almost $13 million in donations in her name. Yeah. So we really want to thank everybody who is listening that participated, and for everybody who is still making donations in her name. It is certainly the movement that she was worthy of, and I think she really would have been very, very pleased to see that. Our interns, our animals, Eddie and Chewy and Leia and Tater, did post something on all of our social media thanking everybody for their support, for their donations, and assuring everybody that every single dime does make a huge difference in the lives of all animals. So thank you very much. We are very, very grateful that all of you, heard the call to action and acted. That's really quite wonderful. So that was my first EVP. My second EVP is, you guys all know that I was handpicked and trained by the team at Entity Voices Paranormal Investigations, headed up by Tony and Cherie Rathman. I then went on to form a paranormal investigative team with Chris Allgood and Audra Keeler once we all moved to the East Coast, Southern Entities Paranormal. So we promote their show a lot, Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence. It airs every single Monday through StreamYard. It is through KGRA Radio, and you can watch them on Facebook, which is generally where we promote them. They are also on YouTube. But Tony and Cherie Rathman have a son named Dylan, and Dylan is an investigator in training. One of the most amazing things is that Dylan is going to be featured on the Spirit Realm Network with one of the most prolific and what's the word I want to use to describe him? Prolific and intriguing paranormal investigators, and I'm sure most of you have heard of him, Rick McCallum. So, Spirit Realm Network is going to be doing a special live event with Rick McCallum and Dylan Rathman at none other than the 1910 jail in Globe, Arizona. So I am super, super excited about this. Rick is the founder of Hollywood Ghost Hunters. He's teaming up with Dylan, and they're both going to take on and investigate the 1910 jail in Globe. So, I want to go ahead and I want to promote this. We're going to be promoting this every week. It is going to be a live episode. You can find them at spiritrealm.net, and you can watch the live. It is going to be on February 25th, and it is going to be from 9 p.m. to 11:45 p.m., and I do believe that that is Arizona time. So we certainly want to ask you guys to join the Spirit Realm Network as they venture to Globe, Arizona to bring you another live streaming investigation from the haunted 1910 Globe Jail with veteran paranormal investigator and award-winning author Rick McCallum and introducing 15-year-old paranormal investigator Dylan Rathman. Together, the veteran and the apprentice will explore the historic and active location. Rick will educate and inform while Dylan continues to develop and perfect his own unique investigation style, unlike anyone his age. And Laura, I think you and I can both agree that he is one of the younger paranormal investigators we've ever heard of.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. As you guys know, we did cover the 1910 Globe Jail in an episode here on History of a Haunting, and Laura and I did hold a fans and friends event at the jail on December 4th, just last month. So we're super excited that they chose this location to do this live investigation. To give you a quick reminder of the history of the jail, it was established in 1910, hence the name, after overrunning the newly built facility in 1905 with the hustle and bustle of the Old West Arizona Territory. The facility was the fourth in succession, the first being made of adobe, which was great pairing with the town's hanging tree. The second jail was actually located inside the first territorial courthouse structure, which stood from 1881 to 1904 at almost the same location, coupled with the newer modern wooden gallows. The third location was located inside even newer and a larger stone territorial courthouse on the exact location as the previous one, in tandem with the same wooden gallows. This fourth location, the one we're talking about, the one we've been to, was a new modern concrete structure built on top of the wooden gallows location adjacent to the 1905 courthouse. Looking at the pictures here, the smaller building on the right is the actual jail. The larger building on the left is the courthouse, being attached by a catwalk. With the new era of due process versus that of Old West vigilantism, there would now be no need for the use of the gallows. The jail served the territory from 1910 until February 14th, 1912, when Arizona received its statehood, and then from 1912 until 1981, when the facility saw its last prisoner. Now, if you did listen to the recap of the 1910 jail with Laura and I, you will know that we actually brought one of those prisoners with us to our fans and friends event. My family friend Barry, he actually was a trustee in the jail, and yeah, it was really fun and interesting to hear his stories and what it was like actually being an inmate in the jail. Whether you were a trustee or whether you were an inmate, you were still a prisoner, essentially. So really excited to see Rick McCallum and Dylan Rathman team up. Rick McCallum actually began his career in 1982 as a stunt actor. He performed a fight scene with Chuck Norris on the film Lone Wolf McQuade, and he actually has more than 75 film credits to his name. So he's been around for a long time. He has doubled for Daniel Baldwin, Barry Bostwick, Greg Evigan, Oliver Platt, Chris Knopf, and many horror icons, including Kane Hodder, who was Jason Voorhees. So Rick McCallum, he's a really wonderful, lovely guy. He has been on Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence for a very long time. He has been featured so many times. He was fortunate enough to meet Dylan Rathman when Rick investigated my beautiful beginnings, my family beginnings of the Phelps Dodge Hospital. And so from there, the relationships just kind of grew, and he was really impressed with Dylan's skills and his techniques and the way that he investigated, especially for somebody so young. Right. So they kind of partnered and decided they wanted to do a really special presentation. So we hope you will all join us on February 25th and watch the live investigation of Rick McCallum and Dylan Rathman. We're going to be promoting this every week. I won't be going on as long as this every single week, but it's really important. Tony and Cherie, like I said, they handpicked me to train me as a professional paranormal investigator, and they've become amazing friends of mine, and Dylan is really a fabulous investigator. I hate to keep saying for as young as he is, but that's sort of like, it's true. He's 15 years old, and yet he has I've watched video of him, and he has the skills and the take on it of a seasoned paranormal investigator. So this is going to be really, really great. And I'm interested to see the dynamic between him and Rick McCallum, who's been investigating for 55 years, Laura.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the first EVP that we wanted to promote, or the second rather. The next one that I wanted to talk about, just a real quick second, we got a message from a listener, a new listener, who she still has it, has the amazing name of Carrie. And yeah, I love it. She actually messaged us. She's new to the podcast, and so she was going through the episodes, listening to them in order, and she came to the episode number 5, the Queen Mary episode, which is not really an episode that Archie and I promote a whole lot, simply because that was one of those nights where it was a really long day. And we're not really particularly proud of that episode. But we had Carrie listen to the episode and send us some very polite critiques of the episode. So I just want to read some of them. She says, "Hi kids, I'm new to your show. I'm also listening in order from the first onward. I just listened to the Queen Mary podcast. I was a, quote, real honest to God, end quote, tour guide on the ship for 4 years. Some of the information that you mentioned was questionable at best."
She kind of pulled you to the carpet pretty quick.
Pretty quick, yeah, but I liked it.
I like her already.
I like it. Yeah, I was like, okay, go on. Although there was only a select few of us who made the effort to read any of the information given to us. As tour guides, we had access to the archives of the ship, but there was only a select few who actually read it. She says, well, on top of that, I had to have dozens of experiences that would be considered unexplained, including being woken up by someone sitting on my hotel room bed in the wee hours of the morning. As you know, a spirit does not need to have died in the place they are haunting. Sometimes it's just a wonderful memory that brings them back. Also, there was only 2 pools on the ship, and I guess maybe we said there were 3. The first class pool, which is the only pool on the ship left, and is the pool always seen in pictures. So the famous pictures you see of that pool that's got like the decks above it, that's this pool. The second class pool, which was located in the stern/back of the ship. I like how she was like the stern, which is the back of the ship, because dumb people like me need to know that. Third class was allowed to use the second class pool, but only at specific times. Anyways, don't hesitate to text me about anything about the ship. I'll be honest if I don't know something. Cheers, Clink, Carrie.
Cheers, Clink, Carrie.
Cheers, Clink, Carrie. Thank you so much. So she's like, "Hi again. I forgot to say how much I'm enjoying the show. How fucking rude." Because I had asked her, I was like, "Do you mind if I talk about your message on the show?" So she's like, "Anyways, yes, of course, mention away." She did say in all the years she was there, she never heard anything about a man killing his whole family on the ship. So she does talk about John Petter was apparently a young smarty pants and filled to the brim with cockiness. There are some records of him attempting several times to play what would only be called chicken with the doors, that would lift to block water out of the hull of the ship. Until of course he was crushed. Yeah. So she did say often Winston Churchill was smoking his cigar and told by young Hispanic housekeepers to put it out, and then he would vanish. No big deal. I was like, sure, no big deal. It was Winston Churchill smoking and being told to put his cigars out. Anyway, so really, really lovely listener. I'm glad to hear this. I was like, okay, all right. Questionable at best. Well, great. So, maybe we have somebody like that on the show sometime, Laura, and we ask them, hey, you had access to the archives. Talk to us about it. Maybe they'd give a little bit of a better history. Yeah, so I was pretty glad about that. So I wanted to let everybody know that we had a fan reach out, a new fan reach out and let us know, and one that was an actual tour guide on the ship, which I thought was pretty great. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So that is what I have for EVPs for the show. Okay. Yeah, that's what I have for EVPs of the show. Do you have anything else? It's almost half an hour in. I'm like, wow,
I think we're good.
I think we're good. We are going to keep promoting the Spirit Realm Network and the live event at the 1910 jail, guys, but it's not going to be nearly as long. But I did need to give an intro to Rick and Dylan, and I think it's really wonderful. So for more information on it, you can go to spiritrealm.net. Again, that's from 9 p.m. to 11:45 p.m. on February the 25th, I believe.
You got it.
Yeah. Okay, so Laura, why don't you tell everybody where we're taking them today?
Today we are going to the Missouri State Penitentiary.
We are. This is a good one. What are your sources?
My sources are voxmagazine.com, Wikipedia, and MissouriPenTours.com.
Cool. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought so.
Yeah, it's short, sweet, and to the point. Mine are not.
Exactly.
Just letting everybody know I got a lot.
All right. You ready?
I think so. I believe I'm ready. Let me check something real super fast. No, I'm ready. I'm ready. Go. Yes.
Are you sure? All right.
Yeah.
So the Missouri State Penitentiary was the first penal institution west of the Mississippi River.
Okay.
It opened its doors in 1836 and operated continuously until 2004. That's a long-ass time, almost 200 years.
Yeah, that's really recent that it closed, too. That's pretty impressive.
It is.
Yeah.
For real. The Missouri State Penitentiary, also known as MSP or the Walls, was a notoriously brutal prison. And in 1967, Time magazine named it the bloodiest 47 acres in America.
Bloodier than Gettysburg? How many acres is that?
I don't know. Listen, I didn't work for Time magazine in 1967.
Okay, historical mathematicians, let us know.
Right.
Okay.
So the state penitentiary was originally designed by John Haviland and constructed in the early 1830s to serve the newly admitted state of Missouri.
Okay.
Jefferson City had been designated the state capital in 1822, and Governor John Miller suggested that the state's main prison be constructed there to help the city maintain its somewhat tenuous status against other towns trying to obtain the capital for themselves.
Oh, wow. All right.
So, James Dunica, a master stonemason, who built the first Capitol building in Jefferson City, was appointed to oversee the construction of the new prison. And $25,000 was allotted by the legislature for expenses.
How much is that in today's money?
Dude, I don't know. A lot.
500 million. Okay.
Right. I don't know. You could Google it. The facility opened.
Fuck you. I'm gonna.
Go ahead. And in March 1836, the same month as the fall of the Alamo in Texas, if that tells you how old this is.
Okay.
Prisoners were employed during the 1830s in making the bricks for the prison.
Of course
the
they
initial
were.
prison population consisted of one guard, one warden, 15 prisoners, and a foreman for the brick-making operation.
Okay.
11 of the 15 prisoners were from St. Louis, and all were incarcerated for larceny, except for one who was imprisoned for stabbing a man during a drunken brawl.
Oh, cool. Okay, so if
Interesting.
if the 11 ran away, it's not that big of a public threat. Mm-hmm. The one, okay,
just the
gotcha.
one.
Just the one. All right, gotcha.
All right. So in 1868, A Hall, also known as Housing Unit A and Housing Unit 4, was finished. The building was constructed of stone quarried on site and built, again, mainly by inmates.
They all were, weren't they, though?
Yeah, it seems
they
like
pretty much all were. Yeah.
Right. So, where are we? Okay. From 1938 to 1965, 39 prisoners were executed in the penitentiary's gas chamber. On January 6th, 1989, inmate George Tiny Mercer was executed. It was the last execution to take place at the Missouri State Penitentiary.
You said
and
89?
The first execution. Yeah, 89.
Wow, all right.
And it was the first execution by means of lethal injection.
Oh,
the execution did still take place in the disused gas chamber.
Oh, okay. Okay, I gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
So in the early 1970s, the penitentiary attempted to desegregate by moving a few black inmates into an all-white housing unit. After white inmates stabbed the black inmates, desegregation was put on hold.
I was just gonna, I was like, oh, Jesus, how'd that go? Not great. Okay. Shocking.
Not good.
Shocking.
So a few years later, the federal government did step in and force the prison to fully desegregate. Roughly half of the prison...
Because it went so well with the test?
Right, with the first time. Right. So roughly half the prison population was black at the time, while most of the prison's staff was white. Official laws prohibited racial discrimination in the facility, but throughout the 1980s, the Missouri State Penitentiary was still pretty prejudiced against black, according to Neil, who was the guy who wrote this article.
According to Neil. Well, according to Neil, this did not go well.
Neil said that.
Neil says, yeah. According to Neil, that's the official motto of this podcast. Well, according to Neil, that's what's happening. All right, sorry, go on.
All right. After 168 years, the prison was decommissioned on September 15th, 2004, due to high energy costs from the facility's lack of insulation.
I mean, it was all stone, right? I'm not surprised.
Right, yeah,
Nothing.
It must have been real shitty in the winter. All 1,355 inmates were transferred to the Jefferson City Correctional Center.
How many?
1,355 at the end.
Wow, that's a lot. Okay.
It is a lot.
That's a lot.
Violence was commonplace in the penitentiary, and it was common practice for inmates to make weapons out of bed planks, wood shards, and other materials.
Shanks.
There were thousands of shanks inside that place, and they were always making new ones, Neil said.
Good on Neil.
Weapons himself during his 20 years working at the penitentiary.
Okay, good on you, Neil.
Good on Neil. As punishment, inmates could be placed in the dungeons, underground cells that offered no light, bed, toilet, or basic cleanliness. In 1903, inmate James Johnson documented his time in the dungeons in his memoir entitled Buried Alive, 18 years in the Missouri Penitentiary.
Yes.
And he did spend 18 years in solitary confinement.
Yes.
Right.
Didn't he almost go blind?
I want to say yes. I don't
feel
remember.
like I read, because his name was Firebug, nickname Firebug?
Yes, I believe that's him. Same
Okay, then yeah, he almost went blind because it was like pitch black down there. Mm-hmm. And eventually, like, the human body is just going to kind of adapt to its surroundings. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
And I kind of talk about him more in depth in a little bit.
Okay, sorry.
All right, that's okay. Let's ruin it.
Let me tell you about this dude, Laura.
Well, shut up.
Sorry.
All right. So, talking about some of the more famous people. In 1842, the prison housed its first female prisoner, Amelia Eddy. However, she was released after a few days because the prison didn't have any facilities for women. So they sentenced her and then just let her go.
What kind of facilities?
They didn't have anywhere to house. They didn't have anything for women. It was all men.
So there was no, like, place they could put her, like, even in solitary? Like,
I guess. Yeah, they just let her go.
Okay. Like, they freed her, or they moved her to another prison?
No, it says they just released her.
Oh, cool. All right.
Sounds like a good time to commit crimes.
Go girls.
After the prison...
According to Neil, the women really went nuts then.
They sure did. After the prison built a women's cell block, roughly 60 women were held at any given time.
And they tried to get her back?
No, I think they let her go.
Oh, okay. They were just
go
like,
ahead,
it's
Miss
fine.
Eddie.
Go on. Okay.
Right.
Find that woman. Bring her back. We have space now.
We got a place.
We got a place.
So one of the most infamous female inmates was Emma Goldman, whose advocacy for birth control in 1917 inspired the creation of Planned Parenthood and the American Civil Liberties Union.
Wow, really?
Yeah. So pretty cool. And that's how she ended up in prison. But, these things happen.
I mean, trailblazers never have an easy path. They just don't. They don't.
No. So in 1918, Katie Richards O'Hare was held on espionage charges for her work as chairman of the Socialist Labor Party.
Not as impressive a crime.
No, not as good.
Not as good.
She was forced to work 50-hour weeks and forbidden from contacting her husband and 4 children. When she was released, she dedicated her life to prison reform, inspiring many of today's prison laws.
Wow, okay. I mean, I wasn't really feeling too bad for her with a 50-hour work week, because we know that.
Right. Same bitch. Like,
whatever. Wah.
Right.
Okay, but yeah, okay, good for her. Her story got better. Yeah. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. I know the women really hey, you're not a bad kid.
They
like,
really
they're all doing good stuff over there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the others were being thrown into Trans-Allegheny for bad whiskey, reading a novel, and questioning their husbands.
Right. By 1926, all women were actually moved off premises to a different correctional center.
Okay.
So they didn't keep them there very long.
Maybe you don't actually belong here.
Right? It seems so bad. The prison is also famous for riots. So,
love a good riot.
Yeah, I mean they always are, right?
An old-timey riot. People don't riot now, but an old-timey riot was pretty, kind of entertaining,
right? So here is a copy of a Times Past column that the Irish Times ran during this time. So
the Irish Times.
Listen, are there any other times? No, there aren't. Just Irish Times.
As a Cherokee Indian, I beg to differ. Let's talk about the Cherokee Times.
As a Irish person, I stick with the Irish Times. Some 500.
It's your part. Convicts. We'll do it.
Yeah. Some 500 more convicts at the Missouri State Penitentiary mutinied today. 750 prisoners in the same institution struck yesterday, following on the refusal of their demand for grilled meat instead of the continual Irish stew, and refused to leave the dining hall, though they were subsequently persuaded to disperse peacefully by the governor. The prisoners today, who demand better food and better working conditions, downed tools at all the prison factories. They were quickly marched back to their cells.
They were rioting because they were constantly getting Irish stew?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Can we get a cheeseburger in here? I mean, come on!
So, the governor announced today that he had discovered an organized plot among the convicts responsible for today's riot to set fire to the prison factories and make their escape. And that was originally published in the Irish Times, March 28th, 1930, which I just thought was super funny. Sick of the Irish stew. They're like, mutinate! No more stew.
I mean, kind of. Like, don't you remember back when everybody, like, in their early 20s could only afford ramen and that's all we were eating? Like, I would riot if that's like, please just let me afford some, chicken Kiev or something fun once in a while. It's constant ramen. I get it. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do get it.
Yeah. Poor people have poor ways. My Uncle Coy always said.
All right. The other less fun riot began on the evening of September 22nd, 1954. And this was a major riot. So it started when 2 inmates faked illness to attract 2 guards. Once the guards arrived, inmates ambushed them and took their keys.
Ugh.
The inmates then ran down the cell blocks and corridors, releasing other inmates in the process.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah. So during the incident, the Missouri State Highway Patrol, the Missouri National Guards, and police departments from Jefferson City, St. Louis, and Kansas City were called in to help quell the riot.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. When it was all over, 4 inmates had been killed, 29 had been injured, and 1 attempted suicide. 4 guards were seriously injured. Several buildings were burned, with damages estimated at $5 million.
Holy shit.
No inmates were able to escape during the incident.
Good.
Right. Burned buildings and other damage from the riot would remain visible for the next 10 years.
Is this the prison that, like, had a bazooka fired on it in one of the towers and you can still see where the bazooka hit? Or is that a different one?
That might be a different one.
I think that might be a different one.
Yeah. I didn't see anything. I didn't read anything about a bazooka.
Shit, I think that's an upcoming episode. Everybody forget what I just said.
It'll be a surprise for later.
Yay!
Right, so some of the most famous inmates that were housed here, our favorite asshole, James Earl Ray.
Ugh.
Yeah. So James Earl Ray was raised
Brushy
in
Mountain James Earl Ray.
Mm-hmm. That's the same guy.
Okay.
He was raised in Ewing, Missouri, a small, poverty-stricken farming community. The Ray family fell into the low end of the Ewing lower class and was known as the town's white trash. Ray later moved to Quincy, Illinois. I know. He later moved to Quincy, Illinois, a rowdy river community on the Mississippi River, where he began associating with the town's quote-unquote bad element and getting into minor scrapes with the law. In 1959, Ray and an accomplice held up a Kroger store in St. Louis, and after being caught, tried, and convicted, Ray was sentenced to 20 years at the Missouri State Penitentiary.
For holding up a grocery store.
Yes.
Okay.
He had previously served terms in Joliet and Pontiac prisons in Illinois and Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary in Kansas. So this is not
Those are some hardcore fucking prisons.
Yeah, they are.
Joliet and Leavenworth, Pontiac I'm not familiar with, but Joliet and Leavenworth are hardcore prisons.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
So after several escape attempts at MSP, Ray made one final escape plan. In 1967, he reported to his job in the prison bakery early and was helped into a large box that was used to ship loaves of bread. Soon, a truck drove up to pick up a supply and several boxes, including the one containing Ray.
Didn't he do this at Brushy?
He did escape Brushy, and then they found him. He was like an escape artist. He was always getting out of these prisons.
But didn't he, like, pack himself in as roast beef, or was that somebody else?
No, that was somebody else. That was the guy that was doing the yoga.
Okay, all right.
But he did get over the wall, I think, in Brushy, and then they found him. Like, not far. Because remember, Brushy's like, there's nowhere to fucking go.
Right.
Yeah, so they found him later.
Okay.
Not too far.
Man, they were really, that's out of the box thinking. I'd be like, I'm just going to try to tunnel through the wall like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank. And these guys are... Sorry.
Getting it done.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
So...
James Earl Ray.
So he got out, and he had escaped. They did not catch him. Unfortunately, he stayed on the lam until about a year later when he assassinated Martin Luther King. And then we know that he was sentenced to Brushy.
Where he tried to escape from there.
And then, it does say that too, yeah. So
Sorry.
That's okay. He was sentenced to 99 years when he went to Brushy, and then, he tried to escape multiple times, which we cover in our Brushy Mountain episode.
Yeah.
So feel free to go up on that one. So, back to Mr. Firebug Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the 1880s, a man caught the public's attention with his antics in prison. That man was Firebug Johnson, one of the most notorious of all the inmates to ever serve a sentence at the penitentiary. Johnson attempted to escape several times, but was best known for his most notorious act, setting a fire that destroyed more than $500,000 worth of property and the death of several inmates. Johnson was then convicted of arson in a Cole County court and given an additional 12 years, after which he was locked in the dungeon for many years.
No.
After he was finally released, he did write the book, Buried Alive for 18 Years, in the Missouri Penitentiary.
I kind of want to read that.
Do you?
I do, because I kind of want to know, like, did he write it from a victim's standpoint or from a prisoner's standpoint, or I'm kind of curious, because while that was inhumane, you kind of set fire and killed people. Like, I don't know. I kind of want to. I'd like to read the book simply to know from what perspective he wrote it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, yeah. Again, like he did kill people that ended up like in solitary. I'm not saying that was humane, but
not for as long as
maybe don't kill people.
I mean, maybe try that. Maybe don't set fires and But yeah, solitary confinement in those kinds of conditions are inhumane. But yeah, I'm kind of interested I'd kind of like to read it just to read the perspective he writes it. Like, was he this horrible victim buried alive for 18 years? Kind of tells me that he, felt that he was a victim, but does he admit that he deserved punishment, but maybe not this punishment?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Anyway.
It is, yeah. Okay.
Another famous one was Charles Sonny Liston.
I've heard of this guy.
You heard of this guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of interesting. So, he was serving time for 2 charges of robbery with a deadly weapon and 2 charges of larceny. He was illiterate, one of 17 children, and rarely held a job.
Jesus.
Right. So while he was incarcerated, he learned how to box, and he was really good at it.
That's right.
So one day, the publisher of a St. Louis newspaper saw Liston box and thought he showed promise as a professional. The next day, he contacted the Board of Probation and Parole. If Liston could be released on parole, the publisher promised he would personally see that Sonny received a job and training as a boxer. So he was released on parole in 1952, and his rise to success was meteoric. He learned to read and write a bit, and his associations with businessmen and managers taught him grooming and polish. He lived and trained at the Pine Street YMCA and began working at Scone Steel until he could support himself from his earnings as a pro boxer.
Wow.
Yeah, almost immediately, Liston was entered into the Golden Gloves amateur boxing tournament held in St. Louis. He won, and then went on to win the National Heavyweight Championship in Chicago in 1953.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, pretty crazy, huh?
That is crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so escapes.
Wait, that was it for him, for Liston?
That's it for him. He won the national.
So he got married, had a wife, children, and lived a very pure life the rest of his life, right?
I'm pretty sure. For a guy who likes beating the shit out of other men. I mean, he's good at it, though. Good for him.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
All right.
Escapes.
All right, so escapes were commonplace, as we kind of alluded to earlier.
Why do I love prison stories so much? I'm like, tell me all about the escapes.
Right?
I might have problems.
So by 1868, the convict population had grown to 735, and many of them worked outside the walls. Kind of like, we would talk about they would be doing stuff for the townspeople and such, right?
Like a trustee kind of situation, like Barry was?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, one convict had escaped and stole a horse to make his getaway.
What else was there?
Other people just terrorized the townspeople. So at some point, they had started to arm themselves, the people that lived around this. Because remember, this isn't a big city.
Okay.
This isn't out in the middle of nowhere like Russia.
Sure. Right.
So in 1868, a spectacular and terrifying story made the headlines. An underground passage was discovered reaching nearly under the wall. It had been detected just in time. The townspeople shuddered at the lurid prospect of 700 loose convicts robbing and ravishing at will.
Nope.
Public outcry demanded that something be done about the prison, and in 1870, some convicts successfully gained their freedom by jumping on board of freight trains that were going by as they were doing work outside of the walls. The prison guards complained that the trainmen of the Pacific Railroad were intentionally encouraging the inmates to escape.
Probably.
Right.
Yeah.
So the guard J.P. Rafel testified, "I have seen the managers of the train throw apples to the convicts and motion at them. When I arrived at the train, the managers seemed to be angry. I think I would regard the motions made by the trainmen as being friendly to the escape of the prisoners."
Okay.
So they were telling them to hop on board. I just think that's crazy. That's kind of funny.
Have an apple.
Like, come on.
Come on.
One man whose idea to leave town in 1924 was a little premature earned a place in escape history. While most escape attempts were made by convicts out on work detail or were carefully planned strategies to scale the wall or storm the gates, Walter Holub had a different idea. Holub had been sent to clean out a sewer pipe that lay within the prison.
Okay.
Not caring much for doing the assigned job, he stuck his head into the 16-inch pipe and wriggled his way to the outside where he emerged coated with sewage.
Sure.
How's this sound? How familiar does this sound? He managed to make his way out of Jefferson City and, in fact, entirely out of the state before he was apprehended in Denver, Colorado 6 months later after robbing a drugstore.
Aw, why didn't you just go to Mexico like Andy Dufresne did?
I know, man. Come on. So, yeah, that's it for the history of Missouri State Penitentiary.
That was so good. I love it.
Basically a shit show from beginning to end.
Aren't they all, though? Like, aren't they all? I find the more penitentiary stories we do, and the more you talk about the escapes, I'm more... That's so entertaining. Like, the guy who, like, hid in a bread truck, or the guy who, like, practiced yoga so he could, like, pretend he was roast beef in a
right, so he could fit in this box. Yeah, I mean, some of them, I think it's funny that the trains going by were like, come on, hop on. And then, obviously the Andy Dufresne guy. And then you have...
Who fucked that up hardcore. Like...
Right?
Yeah.
And then James Earl Ray, like, if he hadn't escaped from this prison, he wouldn't have been there to assassinate Martin Luther King.
He wouldn't have, no. But honestly, in that instance, I think if it hadn't been him, it would have been somebody else. It would have been somebody else, just because he was such a prolific figure. You know that James Earl Ray wasn't alone in his thought. So there was he was probably part of a network of people. There was probably a backup plan. If he couldn't get out, there was probably somebody else waiting. But that guy escaped from a lot of prisons.
Yeah.
He escaped from Brushy.
Yep.
And that, but I mean, he was caught like a couple days later, but his escape from Missouri State Penitentiary, and as long as he was on the lam, was what allowed him
almost a year
to assassinate Martin Luther King, which I think said about a chain of events that it was not his intention. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying it was good, but he was trying to assassinate him for one sole purpose. He was rallying the troops, kind of. And then when he assassinated him, that just bolstered the movement. So I love that he's nothing. Really, in the grand scheme of things, he's nothing. As is any murderer of anybody ever, be it Martin Luther King or your neighbor down the street. The murderer is nothing. It's the person that they murdered that I think is important. And he tried. I'll give him that. James Earl Ray escaped from a lot of places. He tried. But he was kind of a huge failure in all of it. So, absolutely.
And he thought he was going to be a hero. And
thought he was going to be a hero, 1,000%.
And he's just reviled in history.
He's just, he's relegated to a ghost that haunts these places we talk about. Frankly. Great job. Great job. Yeah. I only knew... There's a lot, but I only knew about James Earl Ray and Firebug Johnson. You covered a lot. Like the women, I love that.
Oh, yeah. I thought the women were great. And there's there's a whole bunch more history on them, of course, but I'm just touching on it. And those were some incredible women who did a lot of amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. There. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. And kind of thank God they went to the prison instead of Trans-Allegheny, because like you and I've covered a number of asylums too, where they could have easily been sent to an asylum and medicated, and they never would have been able to blaze those trails. So
100%.
God, we think we live in harsh times. Honestly, I really believe that we don't know what harsh times are. Right now, like the world is on fire, but I feel like we don't really know. as women.
I mean, in certain countries, we've come a long way.
We've come a long way. This place is not without its share of ghosts. So we're going to take a quick pause for you guys, listeners and viewers. It's going to be a blip of time. We're going to take a really quick pause, and then I'm going to come back and talk to you about the hauntings and even more reasons why it was the bloodiest 47 acres in America. And Zane says hi. I'll just go ahead and say that. We will be right back in just literally 1 second. Okay, sorry. I was confused. I have a lot of screens up to produce this show, and I wasn't sure what was right. My sources. Okay. I have Legends of America, News Tribune, the Missouri Times, Haunted Journeys, Wikipedia.com, all.com, and then also FBI.gov. I went deep with this one. So, yes. Yeah. Not that the FBI talks about the hauntings so much, but that's a good resource if you're wanting to delve a teeny bit into the true crime, which independent penitentiary, why wouldn't you?
Of course.
So like Laura said, it is known as the bloodiest 47 acres in America. It was the oldest continuously operating correctional institution west of the Mississippi River when it closed, like she said. As such, it should come as no surprise that it is said to be haunted. So after the prison closed, it fell into disrepair before it reopened as a tourist attraction, offering history and paranormal tours. Sometimes these tours are led by former inmates and guards. Same thing with Brushy, same thing with Eastern State. I love it all. It is actually, and Laura, I don't know if you came across this in your history, but it is only one of 3 maximum security prisons that can be toured today. The others are Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia and Alcatraz in San Francisco. Did you know that?
I did read that. Yeah.
Did you read that? That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Which surprises me that Brushy's not on that list. But these 3 prisons, and we have done episodes on all of them, Missouri State obviously being now, are pretty hardcore. So nearly 100 years older than Alcatraz, it comes as no surprise that the old structure is said to be home to several resident ghosts and numerous paranormal events that have been reported throughout the years. Tales of ghostly visitors began long before the prison closed, with both prisoners and guards reported having seen apparitions, which I love. I am here for that, and why not? Mm-hmm. That should be how it is. So, a hall, not a hole, which
a hall.
I almost said just now. A hall is the prison's oldest building and said to be a hotspot of unearthly activity. Inside the massive stone building are 4 tiers of cells. Now, let me see if I can bring that picture up correctly. Hold on, I have a thing. I didn't write it down. Where'd it go? Crap. I'm going to push a button and we'll see if that works.
All right. I like this.
I don't. I hate it. You know I hate it.
It's button roulette.
There we go.
Hey.
Yay.
It sells.
There we go. Inside the massive stone building are 4 tiers of cells that look just like this, with catwalks that crisscross its width. The doors of the cells are less than 5 feet high, which force prisoners to stoop down and take a subordinate posture when leaving their cells. Early on, inmates were not allowed to look guards in the eye, an infraction that could result in the punishment at the whipping post or solitary confinement. This reminds me a lot of Eastern State and Alcatraz and Ohio State Reformatory, where it was just like levels upon levels upon levels of cells. So In this building, paranormal reports have included the feeling of having been touched by ghostly hands. You and I have agreed we don't love that idea.
Don't touch it.
This is worse. This is where I'd rather be touched than this. An overwhelming smell of body odor. No, thank you. An apparition of a man spied on the catwalk and movements in the darkness. Equipment often malfunctions here. Not surprising. Disembodied voices have been captured on recorders, and some have felt an invisible force breathing down their necks.
Interesting.
I don't love it. I don't love any of it, but I want to experience all of it. All of it. Within this building is a basement of dungeons, referred to as the Hole. Here were kept death row inmates, violent and disruptive prisoners, and those suffering from mental problems. The only light in these cells came from a small slit in the door. Now, as Laura described in detail, one inmate, John B. Firebug Johnson, was housed in the dungeon for 17 years between February 26, 1883 to July 1900. Is that correct, Laura? Is that what your notes showed?
I think so. That sounds about right. It's pretty on the money. It was the 1880s.
Okay, good. All right. I just wanted to make sure that I hadn't, typoed this shit.
No, you're good.
Okay. So prior to his placement in the dungeon, he had attempted to escape several times, as she had already mentioned, and had started several fires. He was moved to the basement after setting a fire that destroyed more than $500,000 worth of property and the deaths of several inmates. Amazingly, he didn't go mad, and upon his release, he wrote a book called Buried Alive for 18 Years in the Missouri Penitentiary, which I do want to read. I'm fascinated by the take he could possibly, what is the take he could possibly have written this book by? But anyway, now, Cell 48 once housed a prisoner who was known to be a snitch. And Laura, what's your favorite saying?
Snitches get stitches.
There you go. He was bludgeoned to death with a sledgehammer during the prison riot of 1854. A lot of riots in this joint.
Yeah, like I alluded to, there were a lot of a lot of riots.
A lot. Here, people have reported having strange, heavy feelings, and an unearthly human figure has been caught on camera several times. So, near the control room, and in some of the housing units, is said to lurk an entity known as Fast Jack. Did you come across him in any of your research?
I don't think so.
Okay. So, he's usually spied wearing a white lab coat and carrying a clipboard. He is thought to have been a trustee who worked in the medical facilities. Which, I don't know as I'd put trustees there. I mean, They were criminals. Why? I have so many questions. At one point, a tour guide passed through the control center to secure the outer doors, only to return just a few minutes later to find all the locked doors had been opened. This antic was attributed to Fast Jack. Others report him as having been seen in hallways, moving through walls, or appearing for short moments before vanishing. Sorry, I had to move a sticky. That was that noise. Sorry.
You do it. You do your stickies.
Sorry. I hate unexplained noise in a podcast, so sorry. Sticky.
Oh. Yeah, they're usually Zane if you hear stuff in the background.
Right, yeah. So now, in the female wing, one female ghostly figure is often seen dressed in vintage clothing. Others have seen a man in an outdated prison uniform leaning against a fence. Strangely, some have seen or heard the ghosts of children, and others even a dog.
Weird.
The dog can be easily explained. Children, not so much. So, throughout the old facilities, people have heard cell doors slamming, ghostly footsteps, loud banging, shadowy figures, the smell of cigarette smoke, objects being mysteriously moved around, and fast-moving entities. They also report having felt dread, a sense of sorrow, and a feeling of being watched. I think we all know that feeling of being watched. I don't love it. And especially when you look around and you're like, okay, there's literally no one around me. That's creepy and unexplainable, I think.
Yeah, well, we had the experience of smelling the cigarette smoke a lot at the 1910 jail.
Excuse me. Yeah, we did.
Like, where you're in the middle, there's nowhere it could be coming from.
Nowhere.
It would just come and go. Like, and it was strong and very specifically cigarette smoke.
Yeah, it was primarily on the second floor. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're right. Yep. I'll be curious to see if Rick and Dylan have that same experience during the Spirit Realm Network Live that we promoted in the beginning of the show.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah, actually. I'm curious about that.
I'm definitely gonna watch that so I can
for sure
kind of see what happens to them. Having been there and having investigated, I'm really interested.
And yeah, exactly, yeah, yeah.
I'm really interested to see how their stuff goes, what they do. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. We had a very mellow night, but the EVPs were off the charts. I'm wondering if they will have a different experience. It's always different. It's always different. The spirits in a building don't cater to you. They just kind of do what they want to do. And that night for us, they didn't want to be too visual, but man, were they audio. They were everywhere. It was loud in there that night. So, with Missouri State Penitentiary, which is what the episode is actually about, the Gothic-style penitentiary ranks as one of the most incredible haunted prisons in the country, along with Eastern State, Ohio State Reformatory, or where Andy Dufresne escaped from. Mansfield is also another one. In Ohio is another name. And the West Virginia Penitentiary, also known as Moundsville, which we also have covered. We love a penitentiary on this podcast, apparently.
We really do.
We really do.
An asylum, a penitentiary.
Yeah.
We're down for it.
Yeah. We must feel at home at both. Several major ghost hunting groups have conducted investigations at the prison over the years, recording ghostly voices and shadowy people. Tom Wells, who began working as one of the prison's guards in 1989, didn't you say that was the year that the execution stopped in 89?
Mm-hmm. They did. And the last one was in 89.
Okay, and it closed in 2004. So this gentleman, Tom Wells, said they pretty much just worked a lot of the inmates like slaves. It was pretty brutal. Wells now leads some of the prison's ghost tours, and although he considers himself more of a tour guide, his own paranormal experience as a guard has made him a firm believer of what remains inside the prison's now vacant cells. He says, quote, "I'm the guy that lucked into the coolest part-time job in the whole wide world because I'm not a ghost hunter. I just happened to be an officer that when I worked here, I had an experience one day." So he says that on a sunny day around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he had been talking to an inmate named John when he noticed another inmate with long blonde hair in a white t-shirt walk out of a door during count. He says, quote, "They know they're not supposed to be outside, and I thought to myself, you son of a bitch, I'm going to jump down this guy's throat. And I go out there and nobody's there. I thought, man, he's running around the building. So I went right up the side of the building. Nobody was there. At the big gate, and the big gate is there, and it's all locked, and I was like, I know I seen this guy. So I ran to the left side, and there's a tower right there. I said, hey, has anybody ran by here? And the guard up there said, no, it's count time. It's locked down. So I'm like, okay. And there's a van sitting there where we used to take supplies up the hill. And I thought, my God, he's in the van. We've got an escape attempt. It's on a hill, so I'm looking underneath the van. As I walk up and I look in the back windows, the seats are all taken. And I look in there and there's nothing there. So I open it up, and in the meantime, John, the inmate, has stepped out front and was watching me. I shut the doors, And I'm like, what? And he goes, you ain't going to find that guy. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I saw him. I said, what did he look like? And he said he had long blonde hair and a white t-shirt. And I'm like, yeah. And he says, Wells, we ain't got nobody in this building that looks just like that. And I was like, whoa, you're right. It felt like somebody had just punched me in the chest. So they both saw this inmate, air quote. But it wasn't a current inmate.
Right.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I like it. So supposed paranormal events, including laughter rising from within the walls, cell doors slamming on their own, unexplained lights, and feelings of being touched by hands. Of all of these, I don't love the overwhelming smell of body odor or the laughter rising from within empty walls. I don't...
Right.
Those are very unsettling experiences, don't you think?
I agree.
Yeah.
Especially if they were combined.
Right. God, put your arms down.
Does not sound good.
No, that's not fun. The most infamous individuals at Missouri State Penitentiary were Bonnie Hetty and Carl Hall. Did you come across them in your research?
I did.
You did? Okay.
I did.
Okay. I had to take a slug of wine for this one. So, hang on, let me just make sure I got my ducks in a row for this one. Okay, I think I do. Okay, sorry.
All right.
So, in September of 1953, Carl Hall and Bonnie Hetty kidnapped 6-year-old Bobby Greenlees from Notre Dame de Sion. Did I say that right? S-I-O-N?
I think so.
Okay. A Catholic preschool located in Kansas City, Missouri. The kidnappers were drug-addicted alcoholics. Great combination. Living together. Fun couple. Living together in nearby St. Joseph, Missouri. In the early 1930s, Hall had attended Kemper Military School in Boonville with Paul Robert Greenlees, Bobby's adopted older brother. Hall had planned for years to victimize his former classmates' wealthy family. So Bonnie Hetty had visited 6-year-old Bobby's school and persuaded a nun, Sister Morand, that she was his aunt, telling her that his mother had suffered a heart attack and was in St. Mary's Hospital, and she was there to collect the boy. She then took Bobby away in a taxi when another nun from the school later that day rang to inquire about Mrs. Greenlees' condition. Everyone discovered the truth, and Mrs. Greenlees and her husband contacted the FBI. So what happened was Carl Hall and Bonnie Hetty had taken the child across the state line to Johnson County, Kansas, where Hall shot him dead with a snub-nosed .38 caliber revolver. They then took the child's body back to St. Joseph and buried him in the backyard of Bonnie Hetty's house. After the murder, Hall and Hetty sent Bobby's father, who at the time was a multi-millionaire Cadillac car dealership owner. And he had owned Cadillac dealerships from Texas to Illinois.
Wow.
Yeah, so in the early 50s, he was an exceptionally wealthy man.
Right.
Yeah. So after the murder, they contacted his father, who was Robert Greenlees Sr., because Bobby was Robert Greenlees Jr., sent the father messages in the mail and started making phone calls demanding a ransom of $600,000 in 1953.
Wow.
Hazard a guess as to how much that is today. Just guess.
30 million.
Low. Much lower.
Oh, I don't know. 10 million.
$5.8 million today.
Okay.
But still, A lot of money. A lot of money. Greenlease, the father, desperately trying to save his son, held off the authorities and paid the money. At the time, it was the largest ransom ever paid in American history.
Wow.
And it remained so until the 1972 kidnapping of Virginia Piper. Do you know about that one?
It sounds familiar, but I can't place what the...
She was a wife. She was a wife of a wealthy millionaire. So Hall, the kidnapper and the guy that shot him, became convinced the police would trace him and Hetty to St. Joseph. So he randomly decided to drive to St. Louis. The couple collected the ransom and fled. So as a reminder to the timeline, they kidnap the child, they shoot the child, they bury the child, they demand a ransom, they get the ransom, and then they leave.
Right.
So, 2 police officers, Lieutenant I've been watching Versailles on Netflix. So, Louis, Ira Shoulders, and Patrolman Elmer Dolan. So just remember Shoulders and Dolan. Told a grand jury that the $300,000 they turned over was the full amount confiscated from Hall when they arrested him. This statement was false. In fact, Shoulders had taken half of the $600,000 ransom that Hall had on him in trunks at the time of his arrest. And more on that later.
Okay.
So, on October 5th, 1953, Hall had purchased 2 metal suitcases and transferred the ransom money from the duffel bag that it was given in, to these suitcases, leaving the duffel bag in an ash pit in South St. Louis. Carl Hall took Bonnie Hetty, who was drunk, to an apartment he rented on Arsenal Street, also in St. Louis. Hetty immediately went to sleep. Obviously, she was drunk. Mm-hmm. And Hall deserted her there, leaving only $2,000 of the $6,000 ransom in her purse. And he took the rest with him. Let's take a gander at these 2 buttes, shall we? Maybe we shall. There they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Douchebags.
So the story with these 2 and how they met, she was 7 years older than him, which she kind of looks it. Although, he met her at a bar. She was drunk. He was drunk. And he kind of made her out as an easy mark. He told her she was beautiful and oh my God, he loved her. And then that night they went home together from the bar and he never left. Yeah. So it's one of those sadder tales of a one-night stand where, it happens.
Well, sounds like most lesbian relationships that I know of.
Fortunately, they don't end up like this.
Right.
I hope. So he takes her to an apartment, a cheap apartment, which apparently she resented the fact that it was like a cheap, dirty apartment. And they just had like all this money. Right. And he takes her to this like ghetto. And then he deserts her. So eventually, after he was arrested, he implicated her. And again, the police found her at an apartment at 4504 Arsenal Street. And after talking to her, they discovered Bobby's body in a shallow grave. Sorry. Excuse me.
Speaking of drunk people.
Or just hiccupy people. No. I mean...
Hiccupy.
Great. Now, every time I hiccup, you're going to be like, you're fucking drunk. It's 7 a.m. They found Bobby's body in a shallow grave in her backyard, which is just goddamn disgusting.
Yeah, and slightly damning for her.
1,000%. So Bobby's kidnapping and murder scandalized the nation and soon led to federal indictments for Hall and Hetty. Both pleaded guilty to kidnapping and murder and were executed together in the Missouri State Penitentiary gas chamber on December 8th, 1953. Only 11 weeks and 4 days passed between the crime and the executions, which is almost fucking unheard of today.
That's crazy, yeah.
Right? That's super crazy. So Hetty is only one of 4 women to ever have been executed by federal authorities. The others being Lincoln assassination conspirator Mary Surratt in 1865, Ethel Rosenberg, who along with her husband Julius was convicted of being a Soviet spy.
Espionage. They're a good story too.
Yeah, they are a good one. And executed by electric chair on June 19th, 1953, just months before Bonnie Hetty. And the 4th woman, this is hella fucking recent. The 4th woman is Lisa Montgomery of Kansas, who was executed by lethal injection on January 13th, 2021 for the 2004 murder of Bobby Joe Stinnett. Do you know this case?
I don't.
You don't?
I don't think I do. Maybe I do if you tell, because there's so much.
There's so much. I mean, my God.
I can't remember everybody's name, yeah.
So this woman, she basically befriended this Bobby Joe Stinnett who was 7 to 9 months pregnant.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about now.
Yeah. That's this woman.
Oh, she's a fucking
crazy.
Something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So anyway, Hetty is only one of 4 women. Maybe I'm drunk. Women. I'm going to send you my notes and you just finish this up. Yeah, for sure. Whatever. Only one of 4 women to ever have been executed by federal authorities. State is completely different. It's completely different. So, yeah, I mean, that's
cross state lines.
Mm-hmm, yeah, that's really kind of telling. So, since the federal government did not have any execution facilities, Missouri State's facilities, and thus the then legal gas chamber, were used to carry out the executions. This was the case for all federal executions in the 20th century before the first executions at the federal prison in Terre Haute, Indiana in 2001. That's so recent. Wow. I mean, it's really not, but it is. I still think 1990 was 10 years ago.
Yeah, me too. Sorry.
Yeah. So, Hetty is the only woman executed by the federal government by gassing. She grew up and is buried in, who cares? Coincidentally...
fuck her.
And no one gives a fuck. Coincidentally, the county where she grew up is where Stinnett lived when she murdered. Or Stinnett lived when she was murdered by Montgomery in 2004.
What's going on in Missouri?
I mean...
Missouri people, let us know.
Talk to us. Do you feel safe? Blink if you need us to call you help. I mean, my God. So... Only $288,000 of the $600,000 in ransom money was recovered. The missing $312,000 remained a subject of wide speculation. Both officers were convicted of perjury. Shoulders was found guilty on April 15th, 1954 and sentenced to serve 3 years in prison. He was also believed to be in the employ of local mobster Joseph G. Costello. Now, Shoulders died on May 12th, 1962. Meanwhile, his buddy...
Cohort. Yeah.
Cohort. Dolan was convicted on March 31st, 1954, and sentenced to 2 years in prison. Dolan later maintained that he perjured himself because of his fear of Shoulders. All right, let me start over. Dolan, I might have written this wrong. Dolan later maintained that he perjured himself because his fear of shoulders exceeded his fear of prison. I wrote it right. I just read it wrong.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, okay. He later received a pardon from U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson.
Johnson made solid decisions. I mean, how can you just...
I mean, so many. So many. But needless to say, the $312,000 was never recovered. To this day, they don't know where it's at.
Crazy. Let's go to Missouri. Hey, Missouri people.
Right?
Blink twice if you have $312,000.
Let's do it. Yeah, if you need help and with the money.
I'm here. I have a duffel bag. Let's go.
Back to the serious. So, anyway, that's the story of Carl Hall and Bonnie Hetty. Now, I bring this up because of the notoriety of the crime, because of the notoriety of the perpetrators of the crime, and because the gas chamber was in effect for kind of a long time. I think. I feel like that should have gone out of style a long, long time ago. But it didn't. So let's have a look at it. Maybe. There it is.
Ugh.
This is the actual gas chamber. It is still in Missouri State Penitentiary. It is available for tours. You can check it out. I mean, like... And so, while I have this up, I do want to say that, as always, Destination Fear is a source for this show. And in the episode, in the most recent season of Destination Fear, Alex and Chelsea are charged with investigating the gas chamber. She's recounting the story of Bonnie Hetty and Carl Hall's execution. And she says, the guard would then knock 3 times on the outer door of the chamber to let them know it was ready. Like, meaning the inmates were strapped in, the door was secured, knock 3 times, you're free to let the gas flow. Right?
Uh-huh.
And then she knocked 3 times on the door. Immediately from inside, they got a knock back.
Oh, fuck. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was, Laura. I swear to God. And they freaked out. The audience. I freaked out when I watched it. I was like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, they both ran out of... So it's in its own building.
Okay, yeah.
And they ran out. Because the door, this big, huge door, was shut. She knocks 3 times on it, and they immediately get a knock back, and they freaked out. It was...
Dude, I would have too.
Dude, for real. It was absolutely hysterical. Once, they were out and they were safe, she was like, I was trying to paint a picture. I should not have done that. And Alex was like, no, you shouldn't. And I really, kind of resonated with that because I feel like if it were you and me, the exact same thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You don't expect that. But eventually they did go back in and they sat in the 2 seats inside the chamber. Which you and I would do. Like, I say that, holy fuck, that's fucked up. And I'm like, yeah, I'd have done it. Yeah, that would happen.
You get tired.
I mean...
It's a lot of walking.
It's a lot of walking, So they're talking to Bonnie Hetty. And they got the words buried and kill come through on the ovulus.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. They also both felt really uncomfortable in that building the entire time. The strong sense that they should not be there. So they kind of skedaddled. And they radioed Dakota and they were like, look, dude, I know you wanted us to be in here, but we don't really feel like we're welcome. And so we're just going to fucking hang out here on the bleachers outside. So the other thing was, how Destination Fear, they go, they investigate the location, and then they draw names, and then it's their sleeping arrangement for the night. Tanner was the one that got the gas chamber at this prison for his sleeping arrangement. And he's doing an EVP Ovilus session. And he was talking about he was talking to Bonnie Hetty and Carl Hall about Bobby Greenlease. And he had to ask them, are you here? Are you listening to me? Something to that effect. Mm-hmm. And he got a knock on the gas chamber wall.
Creeps, dude.
Yeah, super creeps. Super, super creeps. I don't love it. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, you know what? This is why we have this podcast. This is why we do what we do. But the sad part about it is that at the end of the day, there were people that were victims of everybody that were in this penitentiary, in every single penitentiary we have ever covered. So to that end...
Oh, poor little boy.
This is Bobby Greenlease. Yes, he was born in 1947, and he died in 1953.
He'd be about my parents' age.
Yep. Mm-hmm. My mom was born in 1949, so he'd be about 74 years old. Mm-hmm. Had he been allowed to continue his life. So that is Bobby Greenlease, and that is one of the saddest pictures that we have ever shown on this podcast.
Yay!
Yay!
I'm all super fucking depressed.
Hardcore bummed. So that is what I have on the Missouri State Penitentiary. As always, guys, I love a good know before you go. It is located at 115 Lafayette Street in Jefferson City, Missouri, 65101. You can find them or email them about any of their tours. They've got historical tours, paranormal tours, all the tours at info@MissouriPenTours.com. If you have questions and you want to speak to somebody, you can call them at 866-998-6998. And that is what I have for Missouri State Penitentiary ghosts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I dig it.
I dig it too. I think I would much rather investigate an asylum than a prison.
Well, we're gonna have to hit up Missouri soon because there's a lot in
Missouri. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a lot.
We're gonna have to venture over there and do some investigation.
We are gonna have to do that. So yeah, guys, I'll just be real honest. It has been a long time since we did Strange History. Are you ready for some? I've got some for you, Laura.
I'm ready.
Are you ready? Strange History. This is where we kind of bring a little levity to the show if we didn't bring enough in each part that we did. So typically I have a book that details the strange history, and I still have not found that, but I did find something really fun on Facebook, and I really want to thank Donna Kemp for posting it. This is hold on, I'm blind.
Get your progressives on like what I got.
Yeah, let me put on my glasses here. This is the list of components of Satan's spiritual structure and believed...
Watching you try to read this from a mile away is like the best part already. Like, she's leaning back super far. Moving around. Like,
I hate you, and
see it better.
You are a victim of...
I'm using my phone. I can't take a picture of it and blow it up.
I can't. I really can't. Okay.
Take a sip of wine. That'll help. All right.
It will. This is the list of components of Satan's spiritual structure and doorways to demonic possession. Basically, it's a list of doorways to demonic possession that certain groups of folks believe will get you demonically possessed. Laura, let's count how many we have.
All right.
Ready?
Keep track. Yep.
Here we go.
All right.
Hold on. All right. There's 2 columns and they're real tiny. I'm gonna have to.
Sure.
Fuck off. Eastern religions. Yoga. Freemasonry. Illuminati groups. New Age religions. Church of Satan. I mean, Avi. Although I did know people that belong to the Church of Satan, and it's not what everyone says it is.
True.
Scientology.
I kind of agree with them. You got a point on that one. All right, go on.
Well, I'm gonna try. Hang on. Rosicrucianism.
I don't even know what that is.
I don't either. I barely said it. Astrology, tarot cards, Ouija boards. That's it, and that's all. That's a doorway to demonic possession. The list is over. Good night. We love you. All right, there's actually more.
You just can't read the rest.
Seriously, this is a list of what people think is a doorway to demonic possession. Remote viewing. I don't know if that means like watching shit on your phone. I'm not really sure what that means.
I think it's
Zoom meetings.
Right.
We're all fucked. Great, we're all fucked.
Yeah, I think it's like out of body experiences or something like that.
I think that's one of the things, though. It is, actually. Okay, here we go. Remote viewing, palmistry, voodoo, earth worship. So if you love our planet, you're fucked.
Right. Do you recycle? You're going to hell.
Bye-bye.
Don't hug a tree.
Don't. Wicca. Cyberpunk culture.
That's a fucking different one, all right.
That's a different one. Divination. Mediation. Vegetarianism. Y'all are fucked. Spit out that fucking eggplant.
Right? Broccoli's the gateway to Satan.
Right?
I mean, Zane is right on that fucking line. He believes he's a true believer. And we all know vegans just go straight to hell, so go on.
Straight to hell. Lycanthropy. Postmodernism. Backmasking. I don't know what that is. I've never even heard the term.
All right, me neither.
Astral projection. Told ya. That was already on here.
All right.
Necromancy. Rebirthing. Kabbalah. Lord of the Rings. Firewalking. Levitation. Alt comics. Comix. I don't know. I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is.
Vampirism.
Is that like...
I don't know.
All right. Yeah.
Vampirism.
Okay.
Trilateralism. Also, can I not get any kind of credit that I'm saying this? Having what?
You're doing great. I still don't know what half of this shit is.
I don't either. Maybe you'll know what this is. Marijuana and pop parties.
Oh, I might be familiar with that.
Maybe a little. LSD and shrooms.
Never heard of it.
Video games. Our kids are fucked.
Right? And us too. We were playing Mario Brothers. Come on.
1,000%. Harry Potter.
Oh, where were they?
Again, guys, this is doorways to demonic possession. Dungeons and Dragons. Halloween.
Oh, well.
And basically, Satan rules the world. Fornication. Skull and Bones. Rock music. Heavy metal. The Burning Man. It gets better. Twilight films. Raves and ecstasy. Goth culture and Disturbia.
Nice.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, the doorways to demonic possession. So basically, we are all demonically possessed.
And if you're not doing it right.
And if you're not, who's fucking left? I mean, frankly, goddamn. Yeah. So that is Strange History. If you agree or disagree with all or any of those, please feel free to message any other podcast but ours, because we don't care. Anyway, that is that on that. Laura, why don't you let everybody know where they can follow us?
Find your tips for demonic possession at Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at HOH Podcast. And you can also watch our demonic possession on the TikTok at HOH Podcast, at HOH Carrie, and at HOH co-host Laura.
That's it. Thank you so much for watching us. And our tips for demonic possession. Wow. The show notes for this one are going to be a little hard to write. I'm trying not to invoke some shit. We covered a lot for sure. I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm glad that you are... I'm glad that you battled the Rona and won.
Me too, except I'm ready to go. I'm so ready to go to sleep. I'm
right.
I'm ready to take a shower and go to bed. I'm just exhausted. That's the only thing, is I'm just super tired.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I am going to write our Patreon true crime after this, because I don't have a job. So I have lots of time on my hand. Just the one hand. This hand is very busy.
We won't say with what.
I literally thought that, and I was like, why did you say that?
I don't know, why did you say that? It just lends itself for so many jokes. So.
With you, yeah. And also, Archie would have gone there too. Anyway, all right. We love you guys, and as always, stay safe out there, because you never know who
or what
is listening. Also, I might kill Laura before the COVID. So, co-host applications, HOAH podcast at gmail.com. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. If she dies, she's going to haunt us.
For sure. Right.
Love you, Laura, and I will probably talk to you before you go to bed in 3 minutes.
All right. Love you too. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys. We love you.